Learning how to drive a car with a manual transmission can be quite anxiety inducing. So what are the ways you can reduce that? Well, for instance, and I think this is the best way, you can learn about all the different systems that go into a manual transmission, how they work, what exactly they do, and why they're necessary. However, even after learning this, it's still possible that you get in the car and you can still be quite anxious. I think mainly that's just worrying about screwing the car up in some way because obviously you've never done it before and you're not really sure what to expect. But what if you did? What if you learned how to drive a manual using a simulator, like this? Well, I think using a simulator can be quite beneficial in a few different ways, but there are some aspects of driving a manual transmission car that I think require you to actually drive the car and just learn over time and experience. So to demonstrate what you can and can't learn on a simulator like this, we're in good old BeamNG Drive. Now the reason I chose this game to demonstrate all the different things that you can learn or can't learn is because I believe it's the most accurate simulation of a vehicle's transmission. Now I could have used something like iRacing, but I think that's a bit different. Number one, because I'd be locked to a racetrack and I wouldn't be able to do just basic standard driving. And number two, that's a one. And number two, iRacing simulates racing transmissions and racing clutches, whereas this game simulates road car transmissions. And I think there's a big difference there, especially in clutches. Racing clutches are quite small and it's hard to ride them and get the car moving at low speeds. Anyway, enough of that. The point is, I think BeamNG is the most realistic, so let's get into it and let's explore the things you can learn. Alrighty. Now first up, of course, the simplest thing you could learn is where the gears are. Obviously, this is first, second, third, all the rest of it pretty standard. And if you've got a high quality shifter, sort of like this one, this is a SimMagic DS8X, you can actually get a feel for what a real car's transmission would feel like. To be honest though, it wouldn't really feel like this, it'd be a little bit different, but you sort of understand that there's a bit of resistance rather than it just going straight in. Now another thing you can learn, put the car in gear, is how to find the bite point in the clutch pedal. The bite point is basically the point in the clutch pedal's travel where the car actually starts to move. So let's find the bite point in this car. Just coming off the clutch now, there we go, car starting to move, so it's quite close to the top, and there we go, we're moving. You can also learn how to be smooth with the clutch when you're actually starting from a stop. So, for instance, if I didn't know how to drive a manual transmission car and I just happened to have this simulator for some reason, I'd probably do something like this. Now yes, that did work, but it wasn't exactly smooth. If I want to be smooth, here's what I do. I lift the clutch up to the bite point, and then I hold it there until the RPM starts to rise. That's when I know the clutch has done its job and I don't need to ride it anymore. Now something else you can learn, to be honest this one's quite obvious, but is simple gear changes. Now to be fair, the best way to actually learn gear changes would be with something like a motion simulator, and I don't have that, so you can't really feel what is or isn't smooth, but you can get the idea of when you should be on the clutch in between the gear change. For instance, if I was to do something like this, go, and then I want to go first to second, so I go here, and then I start lifting the clutch up now, we can see we've damaged the synchronizer in second gear. So you want to keep it all the way down until you actually get into gear. Now that seems pretty obvious, but I mean, that's something that some people might not know until they actually try it in a game like this. Now, aside from those things, I don't really think there's a whole lot else you can actually learn from driving in a simulator. And that's because of a very, very big factor that most of this equipment, even the really, really good stuff, just can't quite give you. The feel of the mechanical system in the gear lever, the hydraulic system in the clutch, and again, back to the motion simulator thing, the actual G-forces that you get when you are or aren't doing it smoothly. Of course, that can be fixed by just getting a motion simulator, but those are, shall we say, slightly out of the price range of most people. To expand, the feeling you get of the actual systems in the car can be quite useful. For instance, you can feel when a gear engages. You can feel if it's not engaged, and you can feel if you've maybe been a little bit too quick on the clutch and it grinds. Of course, you also hear it, as I shall demonstrate now. You do hear it, but the feeling is also nice. Not nice, actually, it's horrible. Now moving on to the clutch, what you can feel in a real car is you can actually feel the bite point. You can feel the point in which the clutch starts to engage, and obviously you can't really feel that in just a metal thing with a spring on it. Alright, well those are the things it can and can't teach you. Is there anything else it can teach you? Maybe aside from just basic road driving? Well, there is a reason that so many professional racing drivers have a home simulator. So how about we go down to a racetrack and see what it can teach you there. So here we are at a racetrack. Now the first thing you'll notice is I have switched cars. I don't really think taking that pickup truck around a racetrack would have been particularly enjoyable. So what exactly can it teach you in a setting like this then? Well, one of the biggest things is of course heel and toe. Heel and toe is very important in, slowing down effectively and smoothly in a race car that has a manual transmission, or really any car that you're just taking on a racetrack. And basically it involves turning your foot so that it hits the throttle as you brake. And you're doing that so that you rev match for the next gear down, and just to make it smoother and make sure that you're not just lifting up the clutch as you go into the lower gear and the engine isn't just jumping up in RPM, which basically makes the wheels spin up, and it's bad. Like, you don't want to do it. So for that reason you use heel and toe. Aside from that, of course, just the basic gear changes. This is pretty self-explanatory though. Like, you learn how it works, you clutch in when you change gear and you clutch out. It's pretty clear that if you're in a racing setting, you just slam the throttle back on once you're in the gear. And that is how it works when you want to drive hard, is you just slam the throttle on once you get into the next gear and you know you're in gear and you clutch out. But it can, help build a sort of muscle memory and such like that of getting on the throttle as soon as the clutch is out. To conclude though, basically you can learn a few things with a simulator, and it can help you to be more confident when you step into a real car. However, I don't think that it's absolutely perfect. There are definitely things you can still learn and should still learn by just getting more experience driving in a manual transmission car, obviously in a sort of careful manner, not going super fast, maybe on some back roads or in a car park or something like that. But the simulator can definitely help in boosting your confidence, as I said, and it can make you learn the manual a lot quicker. I mean, to be honest, when I started to learn to drive, it actually came in quite useful. Granted, I did already know a fair amount about how cars and transmissions worked, so I didn't need to do that part, but driving on my Logitech, as much as it was a bit crap, it was actually quite a help, and I do believe that it boosted my abilities. I don't think that someone who didn't have that experience on the simulator, even a Logitech G920, would have been able to pick it up as quickly as I did. Again though, that is probably mostly due to me just knowing how the transmission works and whatever else. But anyway, I hope this video was interesting and perhaps enjoyable as well, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.